What is up, everybody? You know who we are. You know what this is. It's the Vish Kumaran Show. I'm Vish Kumaran, and I'm joined by 95.7's The Game, the infamous Mr. Is he 12K on YouTube already?
Not quite.
Not quite. Okay.
Getting
Mr.
there.
Almost 12K, Larry Krueger. What is up, Larry? How are you?
What's up, Vish? Happy Tuesday, man.
Happy Tuesday. This has kind of become a regular thing between me and you. 3 weeks in a row, we start, late night for me on a Tuesday around 9 p.m., kind of mid-evening for you, like the 6th or 7th stream in your day.
No, actually, today was all about sales meetings. Doing more ad revenue and sales for the channel.
You're working no matter what, right? You got something
always,
going on.
always had a very pivotal lunch meeting, secured our Super Bowl arrangements.
Yeah.
So we'll be in Arizona.
So you're going to the Super Bowl, huh?
If the Niners win Sunday, we'll be in Arizona, and we'll be going live from Arizona all week.
Wow. Look at that.
Yeah, exciting.
Well, I'm then extra excited because I feel like one of those days in the week you have to come on here and talk about your
I will.
Experience. That's amazing. So, wow, that is really cool, Larry. I'll say this. That's a dream for me one day. I would love to be at the Super Bowl. Hopefully when the Niners aren't playing, to be honest. I feel like the Super Bowl itself is such an event and you want to take it in for what it is. I feel like if you have a rooting interest, you might not be able to enjoy the Super Bowl because you have the tension of wanting your team to win.
It really depends, I think, where it is. Because I went when the Niners took on the Ravens, and we flew on a Sunday night.
So to New Orleans.
Stayed the entire time in New Orleans. And I was doing a 9 to noon Pacific show. So as you know, in the central time zone, like New Orleans.
That's pretty late.
That's a nice show. That's an 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. show, which I think if you're going to have a schedule.
Sorry. I thought you were talking 9 to noon.
No, it was 9 to noon Pacific.
You said noon. That's my fault.
It was 11 to 2 Central. Wow. And so that means plenty of time to go out. I mean, if you can't make it up for work the next day at 11, you probably had too much to do that night.
Right.
Perfect New Orleans hours.
Okay.
So I'd go out at like 10 o'clock, party till like 5, come back, sleep until like 9, and then go do the show. That was incredible.
That's good to know. See, I completely misunderstood that story when you started. So shame on me. It took me a little while. I was very slow in understanding that, but now I totally get it and what you're talking about. And yeah, that definitely sounds like a fun schedule. I'll tell you that. That sounds like a fun schedule for sure. But Larry, nobody's here to talk about Super Bowl locations. They're not here for us to talk about those kinds of things. They don't care what we think about Super Bowl locations. They're here to hear us talk about the 49ers. And I didn't do a post-game stream. I was commuting. I went to my parents' house this weekend. I wanted to watch the game with my dad. I feel like I can't feel the tension of a 49ers game unless I'm sitting in the room with my dad, because you just feel his energy and he's just always so nervous and so tensed. Like I know my dad loves football. I'm not sure if he actually enjoys watching the 49ers play. He's that tense. And so I went through that experience with him. That was pretty fun. And so I was unable to stream because I was commuting back to my house, which is about an hour 30 minutes away. So a lot of people haven't heard my thoughts on the game. A lot of people probably have heard your thoughts on the game, Larry. You've spoken about it in a lot of different places, but the nice thing is I haven't been able to hear your thoughts because you and I don't talk until we just come here 2 minutes before the show and get going. So talk to me about if I had to say, Larry Krueger, what is your number one takeaway from the 49ers beating the Cowboys in the divisional round? What would that be?
I would say it's the dominance of the 49er linebackers. Fred Warner, Azeez Al-Shaair, Dre Greenlaw. These guys are stars, and they're all in the prime of their career. and they're all Pro Bowl caliber players. Warner was a revelation. He had 9 tackles, 7 solo. He was in the backfield, got his hand on a pass or two. It seemed like Fred Warner was
Can
everywhere.
I ask you a question real quick?
Yeah.
Because you and I streamed, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but you and I streamed, and you said that you think Dre Greenlaw is the best linebacker on the 49ers, and I vehemently disagreed with you. Do you still believe that?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I'm a Greenlaw guy myself.
Fair
Greenlaw
enough.
is just so he takes no bad angles. He doesn't break down incorrectly ever. I mean, he's just
Except
it's
for Kenneth
uncanny.
Walker's touchdown.
What's that?
Kenneth Walker's touchdown.
What, in the playoff game?
Wild card game, yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm just saying, I think Greenlaw's got speed. He diagnoses. I think he
He's
can play
violent.
inside. I think he can play outside. I think he could be a blitzer. I mean, they're all great. But to me, I mean, in this game, he almost had a pick 6.
Yeah.
Azeez Al-Shaair, I think, played like 16 snaps and he had 7 tackles. I mean, it was a crazy. Every play that Azeez was in on, it seemed like he made the tackle or was close to it.
Right,
So I mean,
including
9
just
tackles for Fred,
absolutely annihilating Zeke Elliott on the last play.
Yeah, but Fred had 9, 7 for Azeez, and then Dre Greenlaw had 6 and a pass defense and nearly had a pick 6. So to me, it's the dominance of those guys on that second level that really stood out. And then I would say the biggest play of the game was Jimmy Ward taking out Tony Pollard. I mean, Pollard is the most dynamic weapon the Cowboys had. It's a 1 running back team. If you follow Dallas, Zeke is done. Zeke is the oldest 27 in the history of the NFL. And once Pollard went out, I felt reasonably confident that Dallas was going to have a hard time beating the 49ers. And, it still was closer than I thought it would be, but, nice 7-point win. And then I'll tell you the other thing that really struck me. That was the defense. On offense, just the amazing plays of Brock Purdy. I mean, this was the fastest defense he had ever gone up against. There's a ton of pressure in this game, and he outperformed Dak Prescott. He was 2+2 in turnovers on Prescott as a quarterback. Prescott threw 2 picks. Purdy threw 0 picks. And avoiding negative plays is a major component, probably the most underrated component of being a great quarterback.
Right. Took only 2 sacks as well. That's very important.
Brock Purdy, there should be like go through every snap that he's played this year and just count the negative plays, either sacks, fumbles, interceptions under Brock Purdy. It's very few.
All right. So you covered a lot there. Do you want to start with the Niners defense or do you want to start with your boy and really talk about that? What is really the one place you want to go?
I love the Niner defense because I think the Niner defense is going to travel to Philly.
Okay. So let's talk about the Niners defense, right? You said the one standout and how we got here was you said the linebackers. That's what stood out to you in this game. I thought it was that, right? So let's start off with the obvious. Dallas really missed Tony Pollard, right? You and I did a stream on Saturday previewing this game on Sunday. We talked about a lot of things. I would say I underrated Dallas. They were better than I thought. Dan Quinn had a better plan than I thought he would have. And I thought Dallas's overall speed of just their front was much more effective than I thought it would be. And I thought Dallas played bigger than I thought they would. Like, I thought the Niners weren't exactly moving them the way I thought they would. I thought Tank Lawrence had a phenomenal game. He's a very good player. I thought Micah Parsons was very good, though I thought the Niners had a really good plan, actually, for Micah Parsons in this game. And Shanahan did what he does. And so I was wrong about Dallas. And then you take it the step further, right? And you talk about their offense. I'm rambling here, but you talk about what they're doing, what they did with their offense with Tony Pollard, right? Getting hurt. You look, I know what you said, Larry, that it did affect their offense, and I agree. But I don't know if they score that many more points if Tony Pollard doesn't get hurt.
Oh, I don't know that they do either. I just think that he's, I mean, who really scares you? I'm not scared by Schultz or Noah Brown.
Right.
Sure as hell not scared of T.Y. Hilton anymore. The only guy not scared of Zeke, not scared of Schultz. Really, there's really 3 guys on the Cowboys offense that scare me or that can touch the ball offensively. CeeDee Lamb, Tony Pollard, and if they want to use him as a specialty player, Kevontae Turpin. And to me, Turpin almost busted a couple of big returns.
Right.
And they were lucky. They were fortunate that he didn't, because he's special.
Yeah. So I had a complete brain fart, right? Lost train of thought, completely lost. So let's see if I can pull a Brock Purdy here and keep my poise, keep going. But you're absolutely right. And I thought that was actually a massive turning point in the game when Robbie Gould ran into Kevontae Turpin when he was going to score on that play. There was no chance of Janoris Jenkins running him down. Kevontae Turpin's the fastest player on the field. And we talked about it on Saturday, going back to that preview show, that was the X factor, right? Niners kickoff coverage has struggled. Kevontae Turpin is an all-pro. Then Maher was the other X factor. Maher didn't really play a factor in this game besides that initial extra point miss, which ultimately didn't affect the score of the game. But we talked about that. And honestly, I think that was a bigger turning point, the fact that he didn't return that for a touchdown, than even the Pollard injury. And I thought, like you said, I agreed with you that Pollard was the most explosive element to the Cowboys offense. And in fact, I thought there were a lot of Zeke Elliott runs in the second half that were 1 to 2 yards that would have been 4 to 5 yards with Tony Pollard. And that would have changed the game, obviously, because they wanted to get into 3rd and short. It was a very similar plan to Seattle. Throw everything short, everything quick game, and then take your one shot when you got it. Seattle took theirs to DK Metcalf, and they got theirs to CeeDee Lamb, who made a phenomenal catch.
Yeah, I mean, I would say overall, Dallas, I mean, we talked about this, Lo Neal and I did Sunday in the pregame about how I really thought that, that these teams in a lot of ways were even in a lot of ways, even though they were different kinds of teams, and that the quarterback efficiency and what kind of a clean game was played would be the winner. I really thought time of possession was vital. Niners won the time of possession. Dallas had more than twice as many penalties. Dallas had 2 turnovers to 1 for the 49ers. To me, the Niners defense held on the Ray McLeod fumble and forced a field goal. Right. Dallas got a turnover when Dallas threw the pick to Lenore early. Then Dallas's defense held the Niners out for just a field goal. So ultimately, I think it was going to come down to which team played the cleaner game. And the Niners were that team. They played the cleaner game. It wasn't pretty. And would have liked to have seen more Debo, more Ayuk. Kittle had that amazing double catch. But I thought the Niner linebackers really were the dominant group.
So you thought the Niner linebackers were really the difference. There's one last point I actually wanted to make on this game, because I didn't think about this watching the game live, but then I felt this, and I also heard a not so popular analyst at the moment, but I heard Chris Sims also mention, and I thought it was an interesting point, and I thought there was some credence and validity to it. And basically the point is that, a lot of people look at this game and they say the Niners offense struggled, and that's inarguable, right? The Niners offense did struggle. Their offensive line at times was overwhelmed with Dallas. Their front, obviously, which is very good, very stout, and also fast. And the Niners offense was really just lacking juice, and Dan Quinn seemed to have a good plan, and they seemed to be covering these receivers and getting Purdy to move out of the pocket. And then something you brought up, right? The closing speed of Dallas's pass rushers was not allowing Purdy to make the off-schedule plays he's accustomed to make, because they were taking time away from him when he was getting outside of the pocket and running him down. All these things were true, but basically the point is that Shanahan coached this game that way on offense. He kind of manufactured this game to be this grinded out game because he felt like the only way they could lose is if they give the ball away on offense. As long as they kept the ball, they grinded it out, they won the time of possession, they ran the football, they felt like their defense was going to dominate the game and they were going to win this game through their defense, which in a lot of ways for a young offensive coach in Shanahan, who's been criticized for his management of the game by some, his ability to see the entire picture, I thought it was a massive growth step because this was a Jim Harbaugh type coached win where you're saying we're going to grind it out, we're going to out physical you, we're going to run the ball, and we're not going to allow ourselves to lose this game. We're going to just let you beat yourselves. And I thought it was a really good point because I think a lot of people right now are overblowing what really happened with the Niners offense. I don't know so much that it's that the Niners offense is no longer explosive or they had some brain fart, because I thought aspects of it played well and aspects of it played bad. I thought they played a very good defense where Dan Quinn had a really, really good plan, but ultimately they also didn't want to be over aggressive and take their chances against that plan and give the game away because they felt like their defense would win it. What do you think of that?
I thought it was a conservative approach, a conservative game plan, possibly by design. I think you're totally right. I think they look at Dallas. The Niners looked at Dallas as a team that makes mistakes. And so I think that their game plan was have somewhat soft coverage and allow Dallas to make mistakes, penalties, holding calls against Nick Bosa, and let them fall behind the sticks. And then when they do, really play incredible on a couple of key downs. And I thought that was kind of the plan.
Yeah.
And it worked. But it was very conservative. I mean, the 49ers punted in the first half from the 38-yard line. I would have loved, maybe that's right outside of Robbie Gould's range. So, you got a ton of great weapons and you got a quarterback who's really throwing the ball with a lot of confidence. I'd rather have seen them go for it, even if it resulted in an interception down the field. Instead, they punted, it went into the end zone, and they netted 18 yards of field position and didn't get a chance to extend the drive. So I didn't love that. I didn't think that was well thought out or well executed. And I thought there were some conservative play calls from Shanahan in this one. But overall, I mean, they felt like they play a cleaner game than Dallas, and that Dallas would make mistakes, and that was their safest path to victory, and it worked. This week, you've got the number one sack team in pro football. The Eagles have 70 sacks, so you're going to have to really protect your quarterback, and you're going to have to really play complementary football and run the football.
No, I 100% agree, and we're going to get to the Philly game, right? I would say we could probably get to it right about now, but the reason I wanted to bring that point up is that I feel like a lot of people are reacting to it because this game, right, and looking at it and say, well, it wasn't pretty. You don't like how they won or you don't like how it looked. But really, the NFL is about winning that particular week and doing everything you can to win that particular week, right? Like for Cincinnati, for example, Baltimore was kind of their like big boogeyman matchup in this playoffs, right, in the AFC. And they played Baltimore in the first round, and it didn't look good. And a lot of people looked at the offensive line, and they couldn't hold up. And they looked at it and said, well, what are they going to do? And they just walked into Buffalo, dog walk Buffalo, right? Absolutely dominated them in all facets of the game. And now everybody's right back there with Cincinnati where they were just 3 weeks ago. So week to week, there's examples of this. And I think a lot of people are looking at the Niners offense and saying, oh, they didn't play well. They're not going to play well in this Philly game, or Philly's defense is going to have success. And it's going to be a different matchup, and there are some advantages for Philly's offense and defense, and we're going to discuss all of them coming right now. But for me, I thought it was kind of a ballsy approach. In a lot of ways, it showed the Niners' confidence in just their physicality, their toughness, and just their size and heart, because they won that game really using those things. They felt like this isn't going to be creative. If we make this game ugly, Dallas isn't going to struggle with us. They're not going to grind it out like us. We're going to out physical them. We're going to out tough them. And I also thought it showed a lot of confidence in their quarterback because he had to make a lot of big throws in this game. And before we move to Philly, I would just like to touch on his play because I thought the first things first, there were three things that stood out to me about this game, right? We can talk about the stats. We can talk about the plays he made, the plays he didn't make, all of these things. He's a 7th-round rookie quarterback, and he never lost his poise in this game. That's the most important thing. How many times on every Sunday, playoff Sunday, do we see a young quarterback get rattled? no matter how ugly it got in the first half, they frustrated him. They took away his initial reads and structure. They made him stand in the pocket. They were getting pressure in his face. He was sometimes moving out of the pocket too early. They did all these things. He didn't throw the game away. He didn't turn it over. The one almost pick he had was really just in, RPO. It was a great play by Anthony Barr getting his hand up. It was kind of an unlucky tip ball situation. It's hard to really put it on him, though it's on him because, it was not a bad decision. And then the last thing for me that stood out is he only took 2 sacks, Larry. And when you combine all those 3 things, that's a winning formula. And then down the stretch of this game, he made all the necessary throws they needed for him to make. And I thought he was very impressive from that standpoint. And I thought the Niners showed great confidence throwing the football with him from a lead. And I thought there were subtle differences. Seeing him play in this game, in this particular situation, to me, Larry, that made me more confident in the Niners because I feel like the quarterback they had the last couple times they've been in these kind of situations struggled doing what Purdy did to close out that game on Sunday.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. His poise is off the charts, and the moment's not too big. And as these moments get bigger, that's a fresh question every week. But I just thought the way he played, the first time I saw him was against Green Bay, where he just worked the clock down to like 1 or 2 seconds in the preseason.
You bring that up every time.
And it was so veteran-like. It was so crazy to watch. He did the same thing in this game. Yeah. I love Brock Purdy and his ability to salt away wins by execute. He's so competitive. He's got down and distance on his mind on every snap. He's so focused. He's so competitive that I think he's a great finisher. And I'll tell you this, I really love the finishing combo of the Niners with a lead with Brock Purdy at quarterback and Elijah Mitchell in the backfield. Mitchell doesn't fumble. Purdy doesn't turn it over. This was an incredibly fast team. He minimized negative plays. He had no interceptions, no fumbles. I just think that he's, and anybody who's critical of this guy, you seriously got to wonder about. He is a 7th round draft choice who's never lost a game. And now he's 2-0 in the playoffs. And he's just a total gamer. And he just, he takes care of the football. They take care of the football. They try to achieve some form of offensive balance. And, and then they try to win it on defense and special teams and not lose it on offense. And, they didn't account for 35 points, but against that Dallas high pressure defense, I'll tell you, there was one big matchup that I thought, I talked about a lot in the pregame, and that was Brock Purdy on Micah Parsons. Was Micah Parsons the perfect anecdote? Was he the
running him down
for silencing Brock Purdy? And the answer was he had 1 hit on the quarterback all day. He got no sacks. And Micah Parsons was not a total non-factor, but he was a relative non-factor. So I thought Purdy won the Purdy-Parsons matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't want to make this too Purdy-centric, but some of the discourse I've seen surrounding Purdy just doesn't make sense to me, right? First of all, I think for whatever reason we've removed the context of him being, 7th round rookie Brock Purdy, and we've taken his story and we've embraced his story. And then we talk about him like he's 10-year veteran Case Keenum, who's just been around. We know what he is. We think he's not talented and he's fooling us all. And this is fake. And that's how we talk about it, right? Imagine if you take away, and look, the weapons are outstanding. The offense is outstanding. Those things are enhancing him. But if you took away the 7th round draft status and said, this is Trey Lance playing like this, and, you don't have to project. How do you think we would talk about it?
I'd be thrilled. I'd be absolutely thrilled.
Would be a national story. Is he the future of the NFL? And I don't think those are the type of conversations that should be had around Brock Purdy. I just think that people are underestimating right now how impressive it is for a rookie quarterback on this stage to be as poised as he is, to not give the game away the way he does. I mean, a lot of quarterbacks would have given that game with Dallas against away, especially when you've had the kind of success the Niners have had with Purdy on offense. This was kind of the first kind of frustrating period he had to go through where there were incompletions, there weren't things open, he was missing a few things. And the fact that he never had one reckless play where he just threw it away out of frustration, he continued to play the right way and make decisions based on where the defense told him to go with the ball. And no matter what the defense took away, the fact that he was able to continue to stay confident and stay poised in what he was seeing and letting it rip when he was seeing it, these type of things are not normal. Like in these kind of situations, quarterbacks far more talented than Purdy won't process the way he has been or handle themselves the way he has been. And that's where I think the discourse is a little bit confusing to me, because I'm not here to anoint him. I'm not here to call him the next coming of this. But I do think what he's doing right now is getting far underappreciated.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. I thought it was interesting, too. I think like 125 of his 214 yards were in the middle of the field. So we do know that he likes to throw it in the middle of the field, and I would expect the Eagles to cheat in the middle. Jeff Deeney from
I thought that was a game plan thing, too. I thought everything was in breaking routes in this game.
Yeah, man, stay away if you can from Diggs. Jeff Deeney, Pro Football Focus, had a great tweet this week. He says, I thought Brock Purdy was better than most portrayed him in the game. He was under pressure on 48.5% of his dropbacks, most of any 49er quarterback in a game since the 2020 season. Unlike his counterpart, Dak Prescott, he did not turn the ball over once. And how about this? This is the kicker. When the 49ers kept him clean, when he wasn't pressured, Brock Purdy
completed 90-something.
15 of 17 for 159 yards, 88%.
Oh, my math is bad.
88%. That's pretty good.
That's very good.
Yeah.
Bad. I'm disappointed with my math there. 15 over 17, 88. I was thinking 91. Gosh.
I think it's 88.9, something like that. 88.
You're definitely right. I was just doing something. But yeah, I think that is a great tweet. I saw that tweet as well. A shout out to
crazy.
him. It's a fantastic tweet, and he's absolutely right. And I think, and look, we can go on about this. We're going to talk about him versus the Eagles defense. I've had this comment up for about 8 minutes, and we have not gotten to it. So I'll make one last kind of I'll put an umbrella on it the best way I can in the most Vish long-winded 1 to 2 minute explanation, because it's coming no matter how much I want to avoid it. The one thing about that pressure percentage that's so important is that a lot of other quarterbacks in that situation would have put the ball up for grabs at some point in that game, just out of frustration, just looking to make a play. They would have been pressing. There would have been something that went wrong. And I don't think people understand the discipline it takes to play the way he played. I think people are taking that for granted, and then the discipline it takes to maintain the poise he did under siege. He never got too frantic. And then the way he calmed down in the second half too, because maybe it was a little fast for him in the first half. They were a little fast. The way he was able to calm down and settle himself in the second half, and the Niners were able to run the ball. Those things to me aren't as easy as people want to make them sound. No matter how good the situation surrounding him is, your poise is your poise. You're still the quarterback. He's still the quarterback. And the fact that he's maintaining it, to me, at his age, is really getting underrated. It's really getting underrated. A lot more, again, there's quarterbacks that are better than him that would have folded in that game with all of this talent. I would like to keep reiterating that to people. It's not just the talent. There's something about him. He's so measured. He's so tough. He's so confident.
And also he's got that
go ahead.
The perfect blend of, and every quarterback needs to find this blend of, I'm going to be super aggressive. I'm going to attack. I'm going to let it rip, as Kyle Shanahan, the phrase that Kyle Shanahan likes to use. When I see it, I'm going to let it rip. I'm not going to hang back. I'm going to be aggressive. I'm going to be assertive. I'm going to go after it. And then balancing that thought with take care of the football. We only have 10 possessions in this game. Don't turn it over. turning it over will have a huge impact on losing the football game. So it's the balance of how do you balance going for it and being conservative and taking care of the ball. All NFL quarterbacks every Sunday have to find that right balance between I went for it and I wasn't stupid or reckless. And it's like he has found that perfect balance between aggressiveness and recklessness. He's never reckless. He always is aggressive. And it's there's a lot of quarterbacks, Derek Carr and others, that they just can never seem to find the right equation of aggressive versus smart, go for it versus be conservative.
Right.
And Brock's mastered it. He's in a great spot right now. And I don't know if that's Greasy, if that's Brock's natural thing, if it's Shanahan, they've been coaching him up, but he's in a really good spot as far as risk reward.
Right. And okay, I'm not even going to say it. We're going to continue on Brock Purdy for just a little bit more because I want to also drive this point home as much as possible. Once they took the lead, right, 16-12, this is kind of the ball game, right? Shanahan has this quote unquote reputation for blowing leads, right? You get the ball back, it's 16-12, or you go score, you kind of put this ball game away, you kick a field goal, you really give yourself a great chance at winning because Dallas's offense was struggling to do diddly squat in that football game, right? And these are all the little big plays he made. And a lot of this is scheme, but we've seen scheme create these plays before and the quarterback just be unable to hit them, right? And the first one is the 3rd and 2 when he hit Brandon Ayuk on the slant for 9 yards. It's a great little play, right? It's Shanahan, right? He sets it up where you have Ayuk. I think he's number 3, and he's just coming across. It's him and Anthony Barr one-on-one in zone coverage, but it ends up being him and Anthony Barr one-on-one. Brandon Ayuk is winning that matchup 10 times out of 10. It is scheme, but Purdy was right on the money. He threw the ball with great timing and great accuracy. Then, right after 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, he right to Christian McCaffrey, another slant, another really good job of just throwing the ball with great timing, accuracy, ball placement. It is a little bit of a tighter window, but he just ripped it in there with, again, great timing, accuracy, little big play, keep the drive moving, keep the clock moving, allow yourself to continue to milk the clock and put Dallas in more precarious situations. And I can go on and on and on and on. I've already been going on and on and on and on. But the point is, these are the little things that he did in this football game that I'm not so sure many different quarterbacks would have been able to do because he maintained his poise under pressure throughout it. And a lot of it is scheme. I agree. The scheme is phenomenal. Shanahan is brilliant, but you have to give the quarterback, especially when you put the circumstance and his stature in there not as a disclaimer, but to give better perspective. You have to give him a ton of credit for what he's doing. But John's George, or go ahead, Larry.
No,
you want to go?
Please.
Okay,
no,
so
I'm good.
We're good?
Yeah,
we can talk Purdy Eagles. All right. That's the thing about you and I, Larry. I keep telling you that you love Brock Purdy, and then I keep noticing that every time you're here, I bring up Brock Purdy, you bring up Brock Purdy, and you and I talk Brock Purdy for 40 minutes.
I love me some Brock Purdy.
Maybe I love Brock Purdy. I do love Brock Purdy. He is such a likable guy.
Everybody's going to love Brock Purdy if they win on Sunday.
Oh, absolutely. Are you kidding? To go into Philadelphia. Hey, if he goes into Philadelphia, I don't care how unless it looks like 6 for 8 where he doesn't throw it at all. If he goes into Philadelphia and he doesn't lose his poise, and he plays as well as he can, or he plays well, lose or win, I'm going to just be blown away. I'm going to be blown away if he does that. But John's George, who we've had this question up for a while, John's really appreciate the donation, says, why do you think the Eagles O-line is better than the 49ers O-line for pass protection? The Eagles gave up 44 sacks, which was 22nd in the NFL, versus the 49ers giving up 31 sacks, which was only 6, which was at a better position, 6th in the NFL. Larry, you want to take this?
Well, I just think the Eagles, I mean, in the All-Pro, let's just say this. To me, there's a lot of rankings. There's the Pro Bowl. There's the All-Pro team. Then there's the Players All-Pro team. And to me, that's the list I look at. Who do the players make the All-Pro? And the players made Lane Johnson the All-Pro right tackle and Jason Kelsey the All-Pro center. So of the 5 best offensive linemen in football, according to the players, the guys who play the game, 2 of them play for the Eagles. So, and then you mix in, I'm a big college football fan. Landon Dickerson was a phenomenal offensive lineman at Bama, and he's bigger and stronger and more explosive. He's the left guard. Mailata is just a physical monster at left tackle. So I think the Eagles have a terrific offensive line. I've watched Kelsey. I'm amazed at his functional strength. I watched Lane Johnson, and yeah, you can say he's old and hurt, but he looks awesome to me.
Both those guys are Hall of Famers, right?
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing about it is, I'll tell you where I'm worried in this game. I'm worried that the Niners defense can't get it done on 3rd and short, the way they couldn't get it done against Marcus Mariota and the read option in 3rd and short situations against the Falcons. The Niners have to let the 3rd down has to be 3rd and 5 or longer, and then the 49ers can get off the field. If it's 3rd and 1 and Jalen Hurts can come to the line and he can throw it short, run it himself, fake it to Sanders, they got a million things they can do. I think they put so much pressure on the defense that I think they can win the time of possession and maybe tire out the 49er defense and win it in the 4th quarter. So to me, where is this game going to be won? It's the 49er defensive line against the Eagles offensive line on 1st and 2nd down. And can the Eagles avoid the mistakes and avoid 3rd and long? And if it's 3rd and long, advantage Niners. And you saw that stat in the Cowboy game. They flashed it on the screen. 3rd and long, the 49ers have the best defense in pro football. 3rd and short, they don't have the best defense in pro football. They don't have DJ Jones. They still miss that element of their defense. So that's the key to me. 1st and 2nd down and avoiding 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2.
Yeah. Again, that's a lot, right? I agree with you that getting the Eagles out of 3rd and short is really good too, because you want to put them in obvious pass, right? They are a good team passing, but they're the best team in the NFL at running the football. They do it phenomenally well. To get back to your question, you mentioned it, right? It's pretty simple. They have the 2 guys who are going to the Hall of Fame, and Jason Kelsey and Lane Johnson. Mailata is a monster. Landon Dickerson looks as good as he ever looked in Alabama, and he was a excellent center at Alabama. Isaac Solomalu is a nice player. He's always been very vicious and physical in the run game. He was since he came out. I remember he went to a small school. I forgot where he went. It was something like Mike Upati going to Idaho. I don't want to compare it to that, but it was a smaller school. Either way, I think the sacks thing has to do with 2 things, to answer your question directly. The first thing is schedule, right? Eagles played Dallas twice. They played Washington twice. That's going to add up to a few more sacks. I don't know the exact numbers, but that is my assumption. That could be completely wrong, but that would be an assumption that I would take just because of how good those 2 pass rushes are individually. I know the Niners played the Commanders too, but playing them twice and Dallas twice is different. And then the second thing is,
by the way, Jordan Mailata, no college at all.
Right. Unbelievable find by them, right? What a find by Howie Roseman.
That's rare.
But and then the other thing is just Hurts, right? The mobile quarterback typically tends to take a little bit more sacks just because he relies more on his athleticism to manage the pocket, and sometimes he's okay missing a throw in timing and running outside of the pocket and stuff. I'm going to be 100% honest. I haven't given the Eagles offense or the Eagles defense as much time as I usually have at this point in the week. I've just been busy with a few things, so I have a lot to watch with both. And I think later in the week I'll have, I'll have a lot more conviction, in my opinion, on how I think this matchup is going to play out. But just based on, what I've seen so far, that would be what I would say to answer your question correctly. Just to get to a couple more questions. Aniket Herwadker asks, appreciate the donation, have Philly faced linebackers and defensive line like the Niners this season? They did have the 31st strength of schedule. How will Hurts react to pressure post-injury?
I don't think there is a team that has the Niners D-line and linebacker talent. I think the Niners defensive line talent is as good as anybody outside. Philly and the Niners have the best defensive lines. There are no backups on either the Niner line or the Eagle line. Hargrave, Linval Joseph, Fletcher Cox, Josh Sweat. That's the Eagles' number one line.
Right.
Their number two line is Brandon Graham, Ndamukong Suh, Jordan Davis, the number one pick out of Georgia, and Milton Williams. And then they have Robert Quinn. So those are their 9 defensive linemen. Those are 9 starting defensive linemen. There's not one backup there. Every one of those guys
they're all
should
phenomenal
start.
players. And they have how many different players that can get, really rush the passer. They have how many different players that can really wreck the game for you. Their defensive line is phenomenal. But again, I don't think they have faced a defensive line and linebackers like the Niners, but I also don't think the Niners have faced anywhere near an offensive line like this and anywhere near a run game like this. This team has run the ball on everybody whenever they want and however they want. And I thought Dallas's offensive line at times had success versus the Niners pass rush. I would say overall, I thought the Niners defensive line did win that matchup, but I thought Dallas's line at times did have success, and Dallas's line is good. It's not as good as Philadelphia's line. And so that's going to be very interesting to see, let alone adding the read element of course, the read option, the zone read element of Jalen Hurts and how good he is as a runner. He's such a powerful runner. He has great vision and he sets up blocks extremely well. And then you also, add in the fact that, the Niners tend to create really, really large gaps between their defensive linemen to rush the passer, right? They want to create one-on-one matchups, so they want to widen offensive linemen out, right? That's why they have the 9 technique. There's a lot of space between their defensive linemen. The thing about that versus Hurts in particular is that he's very good at getting up and out of the pocket, right? He's not like the Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson that are going to spin out the back of the pocket. He's going to get up through those lanes. And I think the gaps in the Niners defensive line does create in ways run lanes for Jalen Hurts. It's going to be really interesting because, again, as usual, the onus is going to be on Warner and Greenlaw to run him down. But yes, Philadelphia has not faced a defensive line and linebackers like this, but in a lot of ways, this is a difficult matchup for the 49ers. And as Larry said, on the other side as well, the Niners offense, it's a very difficult matchup because Philadelphia is phenomenal in the trenches.
One thing that I think Niner fans ought to know and remember is that Jalen Hurts, if he had been a 49er this year, would have been the Niners' leading rusher.
Yeah.
So that's what kind of runner he is. If you're saying, well, what do you mean? He had 760 rushing yards. Christian McCaffrey led the 49ers this year. Now, granted, it wasn't a full season, but 746 for Christian. 760.
And he's a red zone weapon. To me, he's the best quarterback I've seen in terms of running the football in the red zone since Cam Newton.
Yeah. And he's one of these guys, if you know his workout, I think he can, he's a power lifter. So you're talking about a guy who's squatting 1,100 pounds and has tremendous leg strength, almost like a running back. And that to me is why he's so good. He's such a decisive runner. He's a smart player. He's a really underrated runner. And I think the way to beat the Eagles is to get a lead, take away their run, and get them into obvious passing situations. Nobody typically can do that, but that's the way to beat them. The Niners have the number 2 rush defense in pro football. They give up 77 rushing yards per game. They have not allowed a 70-yard rusher to any running back this year. So we'll see. We'll see if they can stop Philly's run game and make them one-dimensional. Philly, on the other hand, has got the number 1 pass defense in pro football. And the 49ers, is Brock Purdy going to be able to throw against that fierce rush where they led the league with 70 sacks? Can the Niners O-line give him time to throw? Can the Niners receivers who struggled to get open downfield against Dallas, can they get open this week against a better secondary in the Eagles?
Yeah, and we'll get to all of that. Samuel Bonilla asks, everyone is saying that effort against Dallas won't get it done against the Eagles. 19 points likely won't be enough. However, I think the defensive effort will 100% be enough to beat the Eagles. And in a lot of ways, Larry, if you don't mind, I would like to take this first. The defensive matchup is going to be different For example, if the Niners play as much off coverage and give these receivers free access, right? Outbreaking routes for Dallas was free. They were able to, if they wanted, they could have thrown the ball, 10-yard outs. The Niners were giving those type of things up for him, right? They were allowing him to throw those balls. Well, it's a different matchup against the Eagles, right? If you take the exact defensive matchup and what they gave up to Dallas, because Jalen Hurts throws the ball outside the numbers really well. He throws out routes really well, and he throws the go ball really well. And those two receivers, if you give them space and free access, they will pick you apart, and they will throw 10-yard out routes. Give you reminiscent memories of week 1, COVID year versus Arizona. You play quarters coverage and you give that much free space. Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins just keep taking it. Tannehill and A.J. Brown, to an extent, last year, not exactly the same thing. But you do those kinds of things in ways, and I think that's where, again, this is a really difficult matchup for the Niners defense in a lot of ways. And look, I agree with you. In theory, if the defense plays the exact way against Dallas, it's going to work. I think the point is that Philadelphia's offense is so much better than Dallas. They have a better quarterback. They have a better offensive line. They have a complete better set of weaponry, right? The tight end is really, really good too, both as a blocker and as a receiver, that it's impossible to think that they will be as anemic on offense as Dallas was. No matter, the Niners defense could play excellent and Philly could score 24 points, right? And that's where, you look for the Niners offense to score 24 to 30 points when Philly scores 24 points. But in that range, doing that against Philly's defense is also extremely difficult. So, yeah.
I just think Philly's going to try to have long, extended drives. I think they understand the need to play complementary football as well. And they know that the Niners have a ton of offensive weapons. So they're going to want to sideline that Niner offense. And I think it's just a matter of they're going to run the ball. They're going to get the Niners into a lot of zone read situations where they're going to have to, defend, be patient, and figure out at the mesh point who has the ball. They're going to have to attack that mesh point. And I think Philly's the whole game plan is just going to be first down, dominate the time of possession, get into third and short, and let Jalen work against this defense, and then tire out the 49ers and win it late. I think that's their game plan. It's up to the 49ers to be really super aggressive. I thought their defensive was a little bit against Dallas, a little bit conservative, and I thought the coverage was a little soft. I think they're going to have to really challenge Devontae and challenge A.J. Brown. The difference is Dallas was a one wide receiver team. This team's got 2 great wide receivers. And so that makes the challenge all the greater.
Absolutely. Appreciate the question and the donation, though, Samuel Bonilla, whichever one it is. Titus Moeller asks, I know it sounds crazy. Ooh, Larry, you're going to like this question. I know it sounds crazy to say, but Purdy may be great right now, but I'm leaving the room for the possibility. Okay, I did not read that correctly at all. Let's give this.
It says, I know it sounds crazy to say Purdy may be great right now.
There we go. There we go. The
media may still be underestimating him.
Yeah,
I agree with this guy. I really do.
Let's go. There we go.
I agree. Nobody wants to give this guy his because, the dimensions. He's not the biggest guy. He doesn't have the greatest arm. But let's be honest. What really matters and what really makes a great quarterback a great quarterback is his smarts, his ability to escape the pressure. So you want quickness and mobility, movement ability within the pocket. You want a guy who pre-snap knows where he's going with the ball, and then has the fundamentals, footwork, arm strength, mechanics to get the ball out on time with accuracy and touch. And that's what this kid does. So I don't see it being accidental. I don't think it's going to stop. And Philly has a ton of pressure up front. And if this kid can go in there, it's going to take everything that Shanahan has as a play caller to make the Niners productive on first and second down against Philly. But if they can be productive on first and second down and stay out of 3rd and 8 or longer, I think they got a real good chance to win this game.
I agree with you. I love listening to you talk about Purdy. You love you some Purdy, and I love how much you love you some Purdy.
I'm sold, man. I'm absolutely sold. I've seen it. I've seen this kid play a lot now. I've watched almost all of his college tape. I've watched him in minicamp. I watched him in training camp. I saw it in the preseason. I've seen it in practice. I've seen it in the games. I've seen it in the playoffs. I got a pretty good handle on who he is.
Titus Moeller also asks, again, Titus, really appreciate the donation, but he says, is Debo a good blocker? I've heard criticism. Everybody on this offense is really a good blocker. I would say of the receivers, of Jennings, Ayuk, and Debo is probably the worst blocker. I don't know if that's as much a criticism of Debo as it is credit to Juwan Jennings, who's a hellacious, dominant blocker, might be the best blocking receiver in the league. And then Brandon Ayuk, who's very near that conversation. Maybe not as physical as Jennings, though he's quite physical, but really, really scrappy, really technical. He does a lot of the little things, right? Like he'll come backside and he'll take on a D end and he'll do these kinds of things in the run game. And you have to really credit him for how willing he is to do the dirty work. But I don't know if I would really say a good block. You can say he's a bad blocker. You don't run the ball the way the 49ers do, and you don't have an identity and are committed to run the way the 49ers do if everybody on your team isn't willing and pretty good at blocking.
The Niner receivers, Danny Gray told me, have a saying in their room. No block, no rock.
Right. And Debo gets the rock more than anybody in this offense.
Yeah. So I think Debo he's got the best body to block of anybody, of maybe any wide receiver I've seen.
And mentality too, right?
Yeah, and he loves physicality for sure. I'll say this. You can say what you want about Debo. He shows up to win. He's all about the win.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'll take a team, and you can say the same thing about Brock Purdy, and Shanahan knows it. You give me a team full of guys who show up for the W, I'll take my chance.
They have competitive greatness to them, right?
Yeah.
You want Debo when you're going in, you want Debo when it's 3rd and 8 and you're on the road. You want his confidence. You want his swag. You want his toughness. Debo's beliefs, I feel like, has always been infectious. And I think there's an intangible quality to Debo and what he does to this team that I think is really hard to place. The energy he gives to this team. Jay Mill said it to me. He is the heart of this team. Yeah. He is the heart of this team. When Debo goes and Debo's playing really well, the Niners have a real swag to them. They have a toughness to them, right? And that's why, the Niners swag with the boombox. It's Debo and Trent Williams coming out, and to Super Gremlin, whatever song, whatever, coming out of the locker room. That's their swag. So I look, I've never understood it with Debo this year, honestly. He's been banged up, but it feels like a lot of people were upset with how he handled his contract situation this offseason, and they parlayed that into trying to pick at him in any way they can. And I think it's unfair. I think it's a little shameless, and I think it's a little childish. The guy was trying to get his money. He was doing what he can to get his money. The Niners did a good job rectifying that situation. And the guy puts his heart and soul on the line for the 49ers every week. He wants to win as bad as anybody. He plays as hard as anybody. It's annoying when we have to have these type of conversations about a player who, just last year had nearly 1,500 yards receiving, and he played running back for 35 to 40% of the year.
He's a tone setter, man. And the 49er receivers own the middle of the field. None of them are afraid to take that lick going over the middle. Juwan ain't. Debo ain't. Ayuk. These guys will take those big hits. To me, that's the big difference. There's a lot of teams that make lots of plays outside the numbers, but they kind of tiptoe through the middle of the field, and they're always kind of looking around. Ayuk, Jennings, and Debo go across that middle with total confidence. They're not afraid of the big lick. They're not afraid to take that hit. They hold on in traffic. I think that's the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. So let's start talking Niners Eagles. We're 54 minutes into the show. I promised at the 25-minute mark, Larry, that we would talk Niners Eagles. We did talk some Niners Eagles. We took some questions, but that's the magic of this show, isn't it? You and I just come in here. We ramble about a lot of things. Sometimes I'm not even sure what I'm talking about. Like earlier in the show, I lost my train of thought completely. And so, for whatever reason, people seem to like it. And since you like it, please like and subscribe, everybody. And make sure you're subscribed to the Krug Show, by the way. But let's talk some Niners Eagles now.
Yeah.
You have been making the point the entire show, and I keep saying, let's get to it. And we've never been getting to it. That you look at the Eagles' defensive line and you look at their secondary, and you're concerned. You're concerned because of how the Niners played, the number of in-breaking routes. The Eagles are going to have a plan for that. The Eagles' corners are very good. Slay and Bradbury are very good. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was playing at an elite level. The Eagles play a lot of quarters coverage. Shanahan's going to have quarters beaters. Shanahan's actually had a lot of success against this style of defense, right? He's had a lot of success against Brandon Staley, Raheem Morris, this Vic Fangio style defense, which Jonathan Gannon runs. But all in all, he's never played it with this much talent in the front and this much talent in the back end. Even the Rams with Donald and Ramsey, to me, never had all the ancillary pieces that the Eagles have. When you go Hargrave and Cox and Hassan Reddick and Robert Quinn and Josh Sweat and just player after player after player, that's stud. I say all of this to say the Niners are coming here on the road, 7th-round rookie quarterback. You think that Shanahan has to bail him out on 1st and 2nd down? That was the point you made earlier. Bail him out on 1st and 2nd down. Well, my question is how? Do you run the ball early? Do you throw the ball early? What is the kind of answer, according to Larry Krueger, on what the 49ers offense needs to do to have success against this defense?
All right. Well, you're not moving Fletcher Cox or Linval Joseph out of the hole, and you're sure as hell not moving Sue or Jordan Davis out of the hole. So I don't want to see any runs that are just run into the line. Like Shanahan loves to try to run it up the gut. And those are throwaway runs against this team. They're too big, too physical. I want to see Fletcher Cox is old. Linval Joseph is old. These guys are old. They don't move as well as they used to anymore. So I think if those guys are in the game, I'd like to see the Niners throw the ball a little bit, or run it outside the tackle box and use some misdirection, some east-west misdirection to try to take advantage of how sky high the Eagles will be, how crazy their crowd will be. The pursuit will be off the charts. So, to me, I want to use some of their pursuit ability against them, but at the same time, I want to stay out of the middle because I don't think you can get push with what you have inside against Fletcher Cox, Linval Joseph, Jordan Davis, Sue. Those are like 4 of the most immovable guys in pro football today. So I don't want to see runs up the gut, but I want to see them run the ball. So I want to see them, run to the edges, but I want to see some misdirection. The other thing I don't want to see is I don't want to see lollipop hitch passes against a corner like James Bradbury, who's playing Pro Bowl caliber ball. This guy's he's got big size, speed, great competitiveness, unbelievable year he's having. He's breaking on passes left and right. Do not throw some lollipop hitch to the sideline and expect that Bradbury's not going to pick it off. That's the pass that he could pick off and go the other way. So I think you got to have proper respect for Bradbury and Slay and Gardner-Johnson in their secondary. But at the same time, you got to try to run the ball and control the clock. So I think I would try to do it by moving the pocket a little bit and trying to get Purdy on some designed reads and get him moving a little bit out of the pocket. Try to see if you can make Cox and Joseph rush the passer. The one thing Dallas had that Philly doesn't have is Dallas had a faster D-line than the Eagles.
Right.
The Eagles have a more powerful, more stout D-line, but they're not as fast as Dallas's D-line. So you've already taken on guys with tremendous speed. Now you got a really physical, strong line and some really, really talented edge rushers with a ton of speed. Hassan Reddick has got a ton of speed, and he's going to be a challenge. So you got to run the ball, but you can't run it in the middle. So to me, that's primary.
And I think the number one thing you said in there was attacking them, the importance of attacking them horizontally, right? Moving these D linemen, moving them outside, moving them away from their gaps. They're going to look to two gap, right? Jonathan Gannon, again, that Vic Fangio scheme. They like to fit the run from two high safeties. We know that. They like to play that Vic Fangio penny front. We know they're going to do that. They do a really good job mixing up their coverages. They're very good at playing both man and zone. They like playing quarters coverage, but they will do a good job of taking away the middle of the field. And I think that's where the one thing against Dallas I thought is that the Niners, Dallas felt ready for a lot of the Niners tricks, right, to get the ball outside. They took away the wide zone. They took away the screen game. They were ready for when it was screened to McCaffrey, or you're throwing a little bubble to Debo, or when you're doing these type of things. They were all over all of these type of things. So the number one thing is Shanahan finding a way to do exactly that. Get the ball and attack them horizontally to create space to, throw the football over the middle of the field. But it's going to be a massive challenge. This defense is really gifted. They're really good. They've had success against this style offense, right? They obliterated Minnesota. Not as good as the Niners, not as talented. Everything I agree. O'Connell is no Shanahan, but they did do that. They eviscerated Green Bay as well. Again, not as talented as the Niners, not as good as the Niners, nowhere near as good as the Niners. Don't have Shanahan either, but again, did have success against this style. And the talent is phenomenal, Larry. And that's where I think
the other thing, Vish, not to interrupt you, but I think one thing that's really key is that the Eagles have, Darius Slay and Bradbury are big corners, but they're also a little bit older. And the Niners they've got to get the ball to Ayuk and Debo and their receivers, but they also have to try to keep the ball out of the air against the number one pass defense in football and this line that has 70 sacks. So how do you do that? I think this is a game where I would absolutely use Ayuk and Debo on multiple, end arounds, reverses, in the backfield, direct snaps. I would definitely get Philly's corners. Like if it's Ayuk and Debo running patterns against Slay and Bradbury, advantage Eagles. But if it's Ayuk and Debo have the ball in their hands and they're being defended by Slay and Bradbury, I think Ayuk and Debo can run those guys over, and I think they're quicker, younger, better athletes. I think they can make plays in space against those guys if they're ball carriers. And I think getting the receivers the ball in other ways except for throwing it to them, I think is going to be important in this game.
I agree with you, especially Debo. I think Debo for any team is a hard guy to tackle. And if you can really get him going, I think it puts this offense, it changes it in so many levels because he can take so many plays that should be, a 10-yard gain and turn it into an 80-yard gain. And then what should be a 5-yard loss and turn it into a 9-yard gain. So he's so gifted. But again, Larry, we have a few more questions that I would like to get to. G-Code Travels Vlog Point of View says, will 49ers use more two tight end and fullback sets than have three receivers, two running backs? So this is a very interesting question because it's two personnel sets, I guess, that aren't necessarily common with the 49ers, right? Right here, we're talking about two backs, two tight ends, which is 22 personnel. Niners don't live in 22 personnel that much. And then we're talking about two backs and three receivers, which is 20 personnel, which the Niners don't live in much either. So for a 21 personnel team, a team that kind of lives in that, it's a pretty interesting question. What do you think, Larry?
Well, I think the 49ers are going to use their 21 and 22 personnel most of the time. I think that's their offense. You may see a little three wides here, but I don't think you're going to see tons of two tight ends. I like Charlie Warner, but you may see it in a couple plays, but I don't think it's something you're going to see tons of. To me, the 49ers what's their best personnel grouping? I think it's 2 backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end. Just your
21
base
personnel, right?
Yeah.
Everybody says that, right? That's where the 5 eligibles are: Juszczyk, Kittle, Ayuk, Debo, and McCaffrey. And I think they're going to live in that in 11 personnel. They're a little smaller than the Eagles. They're the faster team. They want to be smaller in their personnel. They're not going to match the Eagles size for size. The Eagles are a big football team, but the Niners are faster on offense and faster on defense. And that's what they have to use towards their advantage.
And the 49ers, what Shanahan, I think, likes to do is use his 21 personnel. And then the real advantage the Niners have is he can use Kittle in the backfield. He can use, Ayuk on the line of scrimmage. I mean, he can move these guys around. He can put Juice wherever he wants to put him. I mean, McCaffrey lined up wide a number of times. That's the advantage that the Niners have, is that every weapon they have can line up in every spot in their formation.
Titus Moeller, once again, appreciate the donation, says, Debo is my favorite player. I not only want the 49ers to win, but I want him to be the center of it. How is he best used against Philadelphia?
I think I just said it. I like him on the end around. I mean, look at Philly. They're number 2 on defense. Okay. They're 8th in points allowed, number 2 in yards allowed. But if you look at their defense, they got the number 1 pass defense in the NFL. Why? Because it's a rush and cover game on defense, and they've got enormous rush and tremendous coverage. So how do you get around that? Well, they're 16th in the NFL against the run. They give up 121.6 yards per game against the run. If you go back to last week's game against the New York Giants, they crushed the Giants, beat them by 30, but the Giants ran for 6 yards a pop. So to me, that's where you win the game. You win the game with Purdy running, with Mitchell running, with Ayuk running, with Debo running, with Ray running. I'm running the ball at the Eagles, and I'm running my wide receivers in this game. Ray grew up as a running back. Use him in the run game. Use Debo in the run game. Use Ayuk in the run game. Run your wide receivers. Get the ball in the hands of your wide receivers and make Philly defend them with the ball in their hands. I really believe running is going to be the key to victory here. You're not going to be able to sit back again on the road against this D-line with their 70 sacks and these 3 awesome studs on their back 4 and sit there and just carve them up with your passing attack. It's not going to happen. You're going to have to be creative. It's going to take incredible offensive balance and play calling ingenuity. And I think you got to run. I think you got to get the ball to your fastest guys, and you got to get it to them in the run game. A diversified rushing attack.
Niner Boss Talk asks, can we stop idiots from saying Allen is better than Mahomes? Allen's is I can't talk today. Luckily, Larry's carrying the show, but can we stop the idiots from saying Allen is better than Burrow? It's over. Nobody that know football and tape ever thought Allen was better than Burrow. So this is a very interesting question because it's based really in quarterback wins, right? Look, I haven't watched enough of both quarterbacks in depth this year. I mean, I've caught their games on TV and watched a few of them back just out of my own interest, but I haven't watched enough to have a real strong opinion on who's better than who. I know what the stats look like and everything. I just really kind of hate how the conversation turns into who beats who in the playoffs. If you switch the 2 quarterbacks and you switch the teams, does the result really change? To me, that was more about Cincinnati and their defense exposing a lot of flaws within Buffalo. Their lack of talent on offense outside of Stephon Diggs, their inability to protect Allen, their inability to run the ball, their inability to have real tie-in between their run game and their pass game. It's all these things to me are so much a problem. And then you look at their defense and there's a very sound and well-coached defense, but there's just a severe lack of talent. They don't rush the passer well. Von Miller kind of fixed that, and then he tore his ACL, and they went back to not rushing the passer well. And look, Burrow does do a lot of things better than Allen too, and Allen does do a lot of things better than Burrow, so they're different style players. I just really hate doing this comparison based on who beats who in the playoffs, because that's not really an interesting conversation to me, because there's 53 guys that it takes to win a football game plus a bunch of coaches. It's hard for me to do then compare this guy and this guy based on what happens in a team sport.
I mean, is Purdy better than Brady? The Niners smoked Tampa earlier this year.
Right.
I mean, it's just
they're both special QBs.
First of all, they're all quarterback prospects for the most part, right? Brian Billick said it years ago. He said, "Hey, the hardest thing to evaluate is the quarterback versus what's going on around the quarterback." Josh Allen doesn't have good weapons. Devin Singletary's just a guy. James Cook is a nice little receiver. They don't really have a big time back. Mixon's a much better back.
I talked about this on your show on Saturday. Can I take my credit? I was all over this game a little bit, was I not, Larry?
Yeah, you were. You convinced me. I went into that live stream thinking I like Buffalo. I came out of it thinking I'm taking Cincinnati. Absolutely, you convinced me.
Yeah, there you go. And it's because the weapons are not good. Gabe Davis, I mean, there's so many other guys who would put up better stats if they were in Gabe Davis's situation. Having one good game every now and then is not good enough. This is a guy who was splitting snaps with Cole Beasley and Emmanuel Sanders last year, two guys who retired. He had one great playoff game. Please do not come here and tell me he's a good player because of that. And there's a lot of issues with Buffalo. You mentioned them, but again, nobody's here. Niner Boss Talk is mostly here to hear us talk about the Niners. He doesn't.
I mean, Josh Allen is awesome, though. I mean, Josh Allen, I think, is a bigger talent than Joe Burrow, but Joe Burrow at this point is more refined,
right?
And he throws with more anticipation. He also has the best receiver. Jamar Chase is the best receiver in pro football, I think.
I agree.
He's right there with Jefferson, but I think he's even better than Jefferson as a talent.
I agree with you.
And then I don't think Buffalo's D-line's any good. I mean, Von Miller's awesome. Ed Oliver's awesome. The rest of these guys are just guys. Shaq Lawson, Daquan Jones, Greg Rousseau, Boogie Basham. I don't think any of those guys would even make the Niner line. So
can we say Brandon Beane is
those guys are not great. Milano and Edmonds can be picked on. Their safeties are dinged. I think Buffalo is
just corners are not that good.
Yeah, I mean, come on. It's not about Burrow versus Allen. Allen's tremendous. Allen's a freak.
As is Burrow.
Burrow's great too.
Well.
They're
both great quarterbacks. And the last thing is, yeah, you're absolutely right. The talent is lacking, and I think Brandon Beane's the job he has done has been very overrated. They have not drafted as well as anybody thinks. In fact, they haven't drafted that well at all. And I think they really screwed the pooch, because I think Christian McCaffrey would have solved quite a few problems for them. I don't know if he would have put them over the top, but he would have really made them a better football team in so many different ways. A second, third, and fourth should have been nothing. They should have given that up for Christian McCaffrey. They should have made the big push. I mean, Brandon Beane was there when they drafted him. Brandon Beane. I was almost about to confuse him with Billy Beane. Niners Boss Talk once again says the Eagles have the 31st ranked schedule out of 32 teams. I don't really like doing this. You play who's in front of you. The Eagles also mostly dominated a lot of the teams they played. They showed that they are very talented and they're a really good football team. The Niners didn't play that strong of a schedule either, and they obliterated the teams in front of them. I don't really like doing this. The NFC wasn't good this year. These two teams are the standouts in the NFC. They're both really good football teams, and I would argue these are the two most complete teams in the NFL. I would say in the AFC, you got a matchup between the two great quarterbacks with two really good teams, and then in the NFC, you have what we think could be a very good quarterback in Hurts, a guy who's playing great in Purdy, and then the two most well-rounded and deepest and talented teams outside of the quarterback in the NFL. So it is an absolute heavyweight matchup. It's going to be an all-time great matchup in the trenches. I mean, we're talking about Jason Kelce, Hall of Famer, Trent Williams, Hall of Famer, Lane Johnson, Hall of Famer, Nick Bosa, Hall of Fame track, right? Jordan Mailata is, an all-pro caliber talent. Landon Dickerson, all-pro caliber talent, right? So many big-time players in the trenches. Fletcher Cox is maybe a Hall of Famer, right? Javon Hargrave is a all-pro caliber talent. I could just keep going on and on. Eric Armstead, phenomenal player. So
Robert
many great
Quinn
players.
has had 18 and a half sacks in the season.
Hassan Reddick has been playing great the last 2-3 years. It's just great player after great player, and it's going to be an absolute great matchup. Appreciate the donation, though. G Code Travel Vlog Point of View says, Larry, you said that Eagles D is slow. Ray will be involved. And I think he's referring to Ray, and he's talking directly to you, Larry. What do you got to say to G Code Travel Vlog Point of View?
I don't think I said the Eagles defense is slow. What I'm saying is that when you look at their defensive tackles, they are immovable. They're not the kinds of guys that you're going to be able to move in the run game. I think the Eagles actually have a fast defense in that Hargrave moves exceptionally well. Josh Sweat, Milton Williams, Brandon Graham, Robert Quinn. These guys are all good edge players. Hassan Reddick, Patrick Johnson. These guys all can play off the edge.
Right.
And then their linebackers are converted safeties, Kazir White, TJ Edwards. So they've
both
got
really
speed.
Good players, by the way. I think people think the Eagles don't have good linebackers. They do. Those two guys are good.
Yeah. And Kazir White, was a safety. He's now bulked up. He's 6'2", 234. TJ Edwards is 6 feet, 242, the former Wisconsin linebacker. So they've got guys who aren't the biggest guys, but they can move pretty well. I don't know that the Niners are going to win this game. We'll see. I don't know what my final prediction is going to be, but I don't think the Eagles defense is slow. I just think inside the strength of their defense is they've got these, kind of like the way Dallas had Jonathan Hankins and he was just a house, an immovable force. Well, you can make an argument that Fletcher Cox, Linval Joseph, Jordan Davis, and Sue, those guys are all like Hankins.
Right.
So they're not real pass rushers, but they clog, they absorb blockers, and they allow Sweat and Hargrave and Graham and the other guys to Reddick to go hunt the quarterback. Yeah. So all I'm saying is make those tackles rush the passer when they're in there.
And I think a lot of the run game issues with the Eagles are a little overblown, right? Because they had that period in the middle of the season where they couldn't stop the run because they didn't have their big guys. And they rely on these big guys to two-gap and stop the run because they want to fit the run and play certain fronts and fit the run that way. And Jonathan Gannon continues to stick to that plan, sometimes doesn't adjust as quickly as he should, but he's a pretty smart guy and eventually does adjust. But I'm completely with you, Larry. I like this front is going to be the most difficult the Niners maybe have ever gone against under Kyle Shanahan. Like, it's the deepest. They have the most variety. They have the most things they can do. When you have that many good players, that many players that can two-gap, that many players that can shoot gaps, the talent is ridiculous. Like, I understand the fandom aspect to it because the Niners' talent is also ridiculous. But, like, I'm so appreciative, and I'm just like you. I don't know who's going to win this game. I'm just appreciative that we're really going to see an amazing NFC Championship game. Like, we're getting the two best of the best. Like, the NFC was not good this year, but these two teams are as talented as any team we've had coming out of the NFC over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. They're that good. Both rosters are that good. They're that good on both lines of scrimmages. This is going to be so exciting.
Well, and also you look at the teams that have beaten Philly this year. They lost to Washington. Washington ran for 150 yards. They lost to Dallas by, 40 to 34.
With Gardner
Minshew in that game. And in that game, the Cowboys ran for 115 yards themselves. Prescott threw for 3 touchdowns and 304. And Philly couldn't run in that game. They only ran for 3 yards a carry, and Minshew threw a couple picks. And then the only other game they lost all year was to New Orleans, also with Minshew.
Right.
So, and in that game, New Orleans ran for 130 yards. So,
they've lost one game with Jalen Hurts under center.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, clearly the team, clearly the teams that beat Philly ran the ball.
Yeah, they did, and they are a tough team to run the ball against. It's going to be fun. It's going to be really fun. G-Code Travel Vlogs Point of View, once again, really appreciate the donation. He's just handing me his money today. Please save some of it for yourself. I'm not that worthy of it. But he says, compare the bigger task. Packers last year or Eagles. To me, the Eagles is the bigger task.
Oh, definitely.
To me, the Packers task was more about dealing with the mental of going to Lambeau, playing in Lambeau, in the cold, in playoff football, having to go there and play them, rather than it was the challenge in front of the 49ers because they matched up so well with that team. They were more talented than that team. They were more physical than that team. I don't think you can say those three things about the Eagles. Now, going into Philadelphia itself is a massive challenge. It's a similar challenge as going into Lambeau. But then you add in the fact that Philadelphia is far more talented than the Green Bay team from last year. I would say Philadelphia is much more physical than that team. I don't know who's the more physical team, but the point is that they're a very physical team, just like the 49ers are. Maybe the 49ers are a hair more physical, tough to say. And then the last part of it is that Philadelphia has equal talent. The talent on Philadelphia's roster, top to bottom, like if we compared the two rosters last year with Green Bay, besides quarterback, we could probably list every position for the 49ers. If we compared Philadelphia and the 49ers, it would actually go 50-50. Like you would give offensive line maybe to Philadelphia, you'd give defensive line, I don't know, is to push. Secondary, you would give to Philadelphia. Running backs, you would give to the 49ers. Quarterback, you'd probably give to Philadelphia. Wide receivers, to me, it's a push. Tight end, to me, obviously you would go Kittle, but Goddard's a hell of a player too. Like you go down the list, linebackers, you would go 49ers. You go down the list, like even the positions that you give to the other team has really good players. And so to me, it's a much bigger challenge.
Much bigger. Plus, I mean, Philly's a much more hostile place. Hurts is got that hunger. He's never won the Super Bowl. He's trying to establish himself. So I think he's in a different spot in his career than Aaron Rodgers. He's also got mobility that I think is greater than what Rodgers possessed. And they're just way better on the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. And this is a really scary secondary. I mean, Bradbury, Gardner Johnson, and Slay are all stars. Those are star players.
Yeah.
So I don't know I don't see a huge weakness on this defense. I guess I really think their weakness is what I described, that I think if you can hand the ball to Ayuk and he's got, James Bradbury chasing him, I like Ayuk. But if you throw a little hitch to him out in the flat and you're real slow about it, I think Bradbury can jump that pass and pick it off. So I want to see the Niners get the ball in the hands of their primary skill position guys, but keep the ball out of the air as much as possible. I want to see a run-heavy scheme, but I want to see runs to guys like Danny Gray and Ray McLeod. I want to see them run it diversified with a bunch of different guys.
Let me ask you this. Is this Bucks Eagles of the late 90s, early 2000s all over again?
Well, it's hard to say because the Niners' weapons are so much better.
Way better than the Bucks, right? They're way better on offense. Better. And this Philly offense, that Philly offense was good with Donovan McNabb and Andy Reid, but this Philly offense is also probably more talented. And then the one thing about Hurts, right, when you're comparing the task and comparing him to Rodgers, and look, I'm going to say something that's quite uncharacteristic for me. I don't really like talking about football this way, but late night Vish, I guess, is a little bit more honest about certain things. There's something about Rodgers the last few years intangibly in playoff games that feels like if you can get him down, you can get him kind of out of it. You can pull him out of his rhythm. You can force him to quit maybe a little bit. I don't know if those are even fair things to say, but there's something intangibly missing in Rodgers. Maybe it's just that the lack of talent overwhelms him, but there's a toughness to Jalen Hurts and a resolve to Jalen Hurts that I think is really special. And I don't know, maybe it's Brock Purdy, and maybe I'm becoming Mr. Intangible guy and talking about the random things that make these things happen too all of a sudden. And maybe Late Night Vish is just an idiot and doesn't know what he's talking about. But there is an intangible quality I've always liked about Jalen Hurts. I never knew he could turn into this quarterback because, I mean, the development from his senior year at Oklahoma is nuts to me. And it's great credit to him, but he's a really good quarterback. And there's something really special about his leadership and his character in moments of adversity.
I mean, they both put tremendous pressure on you. Hurts, I think, puts a lot of pressure in the zone read game and in the run game. And really, I think he's the reason their run game is so incredibly difficult to defend. Rodgers is a better thrower with a way better arm and way better accuracy, but
he's
I agree
just a
with
better
you.
player.
Well, the only thing about Rodgers, though, Rodgers in recent years, it's like he knows he's kind of already a Hall of Famer. He knows he's,
he doesn't throw it down the field.
He does not. If it's not there, he will throw it into the dirt and just go to the podium and come up with an answer. You know what I mean? He's not going to risk it all physically to make that play where others will. And I just think that there's now a point where if you got a big time rush, you can beat Aaron Rodgers. He'll try to extend the play, but he's not going to kill himself. And Jalen Hurts might, you know what I mean? He's out there. He's going to take more chances. I just think that Rodgers has become, I said that Purdy's in a perfect spot between aggressiveness and smart. I think Rodgers is now the dial's a little bit too much on be safe, be smart, and not enough on go for it, desperation, do not lose. It's like I think he's willing to lose if things get really tough.
I agree with you. And that was kind of the point I was trying to make there as well. You voiced it much better than me, but this show today has not been my day, but I'm like Brock Purdy here trying to fight through it, maintain my poise and maintain my control. And it's a good thing I have Deebo Samuel in you to just dump it off to, and you can get all the yak. But Niners Boss Talk was kind enough to donate again. And he says, even in college, Burrow was been better his whole life. He is so upset and so ready to send this conversation to us, Larry, that he forgot the R in better. I think we just have to concede the point to him and move on.
Well, all I'll say is who had a better cast?
Yeah.
Joe Burrow at LSU or Josh Allen at Wyoming?
And and they're different quarterbacks. They're asked to do different things.
But Joe Burrow had Joe Burrow's LSU team was the most talented team in the history of college football.
And he had the greatest season also in the history of college football. Got to give it to him.
Yeah.
I just hate doing this. I feel like when we're ranking them, we start to take away what makes them them. And I think the unique thing is we have two really, really great quarterbacks in Josh Allen and Joe Burrow, who to me are special guys long term. I mean, to me, Allen, Burrow, Mahomes, and Lamar Jackson and Herbert all being in one conference like this is like if you took Breeze, Brady, Ben, Manning, and Rodgers in their prime and you stuck them in one conference. That's what it's like to me. It's really cool to watch. They're beating each other up. I feel like the Ravens really missed out this year. If Lamar wasn't hurt, the way their defense played at the end of the year, the way they matched up with Cincinnati this year to last year, they solved all their problems versus them. I think they would have beaten Cincinnati. I think they would have beaten
speculation
Buffalo.
That Miami may try to trade for Lamar.
There you go. Miami with Lamar Jackson to me is better than Buffalo. Straight up.
Lamar's pretty special, but I got to see him stay healthy.
I agree. Niners Boss Talk, again, really appreciate it. He says, and Vish, love you, and Krug, y'all do a great job. Really appreciate you. 49ers _Cade says, how much do you think playoff experience will matter between coaching staffs in this game? Larry?
Well, hopefully it matters a lot. Yeah, right? Because the Niners have more experience as far as playoffs go. I think it does matter. I think that Sirianni is a clown, the way he's mugging for the cameras. I thought that was really weird. I've never seen a coach do that in the history of American sports. I don't remember Pat Riley doing that. I don't remember Steve Kerr doing that. Jimmy Johnson talked a big game. He never did that. John Gruden talked a big game. He never did that. Heck, I watch Kirby Smart. He's pretty aggressive, pretty successful. He doesn't do that. Nick Sirianni sees the camera and is like, it's like, what? I don't know. Some people loved it. I thought it was clownish. I hope he gets it.
I didn't care for it. I don't know. I guess maybe this is where the age difference between you and I comes in. I didn't give a rat's ass whether he did that or he didn't do that. It doesn't really change my perception of him. He seems to be a pretty decent coach after what was one of the more miserable introductory press conferences I've seen, where he looked completely unprepared to talk to the media. He looked slower and not slower. He looked incapable at that point of kind of really piecing together his message on what he wanted to deliver to the media. Maybe it was nerves, and that's why. And what I meant by slower is he was speaking quite slowly and
So
without great
you'd
rhythm.
like to see that?
But
You want
I
to
don't
see
care.
more of that? So
I don't care if he does it or he doesn't do it. It doesn't bother
now
me.
coaches, every time they show a coach on the sidelines and he's just like, oh, maybe there's some jacked coach, maybe like D'Amico, former
Saleh?
linebacker. Should he wear a tight T-shirt and just start flexing buys and tries,
Look,
and should guys just start popping their T-shirts and yeah. What do you want to see? You want to see a Michael Jackson moon dance? I mean,
Larry,
where does it end?
The thing is, I don't think it matters as long as it just depends how his team reacts to it, right? Like it doesn't really matter how it looks as long as his team reacts it to it the right way. I could care less if he does it. I mean, you got Robert Saleh who jumps up and down the sideline when things happen. Is that how you're supposed to act? You have McVay,
is there a difference
he was
between
seeing
jumping
red
up and down
a few times, and he was sprinting into the end zone last year to
but what about
celebrate with his
finding
guys?
the camera?
Like, they do all these things. They're human beings. They're in an adrenaline-filled sport doing what they want, so they can express themselves how they need. It doesn't really bother me as much. But to go to 49ers Cade's question, do you think the playoff experience is going to matter here? I'm assuming you do because you feel like Nick Sirianni's immaturity maybe might play into this matchup.
I think he's clown. I think he's a total clown. As far as experience, I think it does. I think it absolutely does. I think that you make mistakes. I think you ask Kyle Shanahan, if I asked him tomorrow, did you learn anything from 28-3? He would say yes. Yeah. And I don't know what he's learned, but he's learned something. So I think you learn something. I think you learn how hard it is to get to the top of your field and how hard you have to strive for a championship to get it. Look at Kansas City. They have Mahomes, who's maybe the best quarterback in the league, and they've got Andy Reid, who might be the best offensive coach in the league, and they won a Super Bowl, and they went to the podium at the parade and said, we're going to win 7, and they haven't won shit. So you know what? Maybe it's a little bit harder to win every year than people think, and I think that experience does matter. I think ultimately, if you learn from your experiences, it's bound to help you.
Yeah, and I do think, look, and I think experience matters in this way. The reason I'm confident about the 49ers, because I'm not confident that they're going to win the game, but okay, I am kind of confident that they're going to win the game, but in a lot of ways, when you look at the matchup on paper, the Eagles have certain advantages, and they're the home team, and they're definitely the safer pick. It's really Shanahan's confidence this year. I feel like Shanahan is, he was always a great coach to me. He was not a great coach to some. I can't remember the number of times on YouTube, starting with, Mondays with Vish, with Grant, the number of times I've had to argue for Shanahan, defend Shanahan. People call me a Shanistan, a Stanahan, a Shanahan lover, whatever the term was, but people call me that. People saying I'm never critical of him, blah, blah, blah. But I've always defended him because I think he's a great coach. To me, he's taken it to another level this year. He's just has such great control of this team. They've taken on his identity. He knows how what this team needs to do to win games. He has such great confidence and understanding of where his defense is and how they're playing and what he needs to do as a coordinator to ensure that his defense can close out games for him. He has such a great chemistry with Brock Purdy on how he calls plays for Brock Purdy. He has great confidence in Brock Purdy, and that confidence is emitting to the entire team, and it's emitting in when you see him in press conferences and the way he talks. He has such confidence in this team, this quarterback, and how they're going to win games. And I think that's going to play a factor because I think Shanahan's going to come up with a plan and figure a way out in this game. And when he believes in a plan and he believes in doing something this year, it feels like it's been happening. And I think that's the one advantage the Niners really have. I don't know if it's an experience advantage or if it's a talent advantage. It might be a little bit of both. But to me, Shanahan is kind of their advantage in this game.
I think the Niners have advantage is the physicality of their defense, top to bottom. I think their physicality. Devontae Smith doesn't want to take hits. Miles Sanders doesn't want to get hit. Dallas Goedert doesn't want to take hits. I think the 49ers, they make you pay for catching underneath. And And that to me is, if there's one advantage where I think they're more physical. I think they're the more physical football team.
Physical with an F, as Mike Singletary would say.
Yeah, physical with an F.
Finally, one last question from Jared McBride. He says, or not a question, a comment. He's letting us know. Thank you, Jared. Appreciate the donation. He's saying McCaffrey will have a big day versus the Eagles. Larry, I heard you talking about how you liked a certain Elijah Mitchell to close the game, and you like the way he was running. Do you feel like McCaffrey would have a big game? The last 2 times we've talked about the carry split, I've been so confident it's going to be 80-20 McCaffrey. As the game wore on last week, we saw Mitchell actually get more carries. He really was the one who closed the game for the Niners. McCaffrey also got hurt. But do you think it's going to be more 50-50 McCaffrey-Mitchell on Sunday?
Well, I think that what you saw in this last game was more a product of the injury to McCaffrey. So if McCaffrey's healthy, I think he'll get the lion's share. But I think there's a confidence that Kyle Shanahan has in putting the game away with Elijah Mitchell, because he doesn't fumble and he runs efficiently between the tackles. And even in obvious run situations, you can't just key on him, because he can make the first guy miss and he'll fight for every extra yard and not turn it over. I mean, that to me is the kind of the definition of a good back at the end. But I will say this was an interesting stat that I saw. The NFC East this year went 29-16-1 against the spread against non-division opponents. It was the best mark in the NFL by any division by far.
That's wild to me. That's wild. To be fair, the NFC East, especially early, the Giants won a lot of games they were not favored in.
Yeah. Okay.
That definitely is against the spread. But yeah, I agree with you. Larry, we've been going on for an hour and 36 minutes. I know we've made a habit of making this a 2-hour show. Maybe we could cut it here, but before we do, is there anything else you want to say about this game? I know that we covered it in a very unorganized manner, but we ended up talking about all elements to it. There was one more topic I wanted to hit. So if you're ready to go off of this game, I wanted to just touch on that topic really quick. And that's what happened to Charles Omenihu this week. Obviously, he was not charged, but there was, a case for domestic violence. We obviously have to see the thing play out. If what he did is true, then yeah, obviously what he did was very wrong. And I think the 49ers should I saw Grant and his father said it, and I think they said it right. He should only be active for this game if this situation is kind of figured out. In a lot of ways, it's eerie to me, and I don't want to compare either situation, because there's a severity and a seriousness to both of these situations when we're talking about it. But just in terms of the occurrence and kind of the emotions I have, that the timing, like, man, this is a rough time for something like that to happen. But obviously your thoughts is first with the woman, but and his significant other. But the Michael Crabtree, what ended up being a faux sexual assault case that was against Michael Crabtree the week before the Atlanta NFC Championship game in 2012, that happening this same exact week, it feels like eerie timing that this happened. Again, I don't want to compare the severity of either situation or compare what happened. I'm not here to do that. It's more to just say, like, it's eerie how both of those things happen. But do you have any thoughts on it, Larry? My number one thing is, again, unless this situation is kind of cleared up, as good a player as he is, I agree with what Grant and his dad said. And I saw his dad tweeted about it. Shout out to him, that he shouldn't be active unless this thing is somewhat settled.
Well, obviously domestic violence is a problem in our society that's, it's bigger than any one player, team, or sport.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's an obvious issue. I think consistency in how these issues are dealt with has to be, to me, that's what I don't think you can sit a player down just simply because of the accusation. I think it has to be beyond that. There's, I don't know the details in this situation.
Right.
I don't know the validity of any of it. I mean, I don't know how credible, his story is versus the woman's story, what the details are. I haven't gone into great knowledge of this. If I guess as a team, you have to do your due diligence and figure out what the facts actually are. And I think I would try to find out those facts as fast as possible and side, make your evaluation based on the facts. But if I'm going to have a standard of like, at this point, I let people play. At that point, I sit them down. I think that it has to be more than just an accusation. I don't think an accusation, just because it's not rectified or cleared up, should be the point of which you sit the player down. We live in a world where you have to be innocent until proven guilty, and not the other way around. So whether he's a good player or not doesn't matter. Whether he's on my team or your team or the team that I'm playing, it doesn't matter. All those things don't matter. To me, it's like, I think you have to have some consistency. When do you sit a player down? Do you sit a player down when an accusation's been made? Do you sit a player down when an arrest has happened? Do you sit a player down when it's been proven that he did this? These are tough questions to answer. I think I'd want to be consistent with that. I wouldn't want it to be just, in this case, we did this. In this case, we did that. I think it's important that they figure out the facts and deal with this responsibly. Nobody's saying, sweep it under the rug, but at the same time, I don't know if the arrest on suspicion of domestic violence would be the point where I would sit the player down. To me, I would want something more than the suspicion of domestic violence. I would want something more official than that as the point where I'm deciding, is he going to play or not going to play? So that's how I feel about it. I mean, I know other people want to take a more, hey, sit down, and then if it's cleared up, but what if this is a false claim?
Yeah.
What if it's a false claim, and every time somebody makes a false claim about somebody in a situation, they're kept out of their profession? I mean, let's find out how concrete this claim is and do some research. But I don't think it's, suspicion of domestic violence is not where I would sit a guy down.
And look, that's a completely fair take as well. And I think in a lot of ways, the thing is, we don't have a lot of information on the situation. It's difficult, to talk with great clarity. I'm, in fact, in a lot of ways, at a loss for words. Not, I can spit out a few words, whatever, but loss for words that have meaning towards this situation, because you want to give the issue as much sensitivity as possible, because the issue is obviously very real within our society, and we know how wrong the act of domestic violence is. But also at the same time, you want to let the course of the law and let the situation play itself out. And that's where I feel like it's just a difficult thing to talk about and comment about. I did want to make sure that we covered it because it's obviously news. It is something that happened this week, but at the same time, I wanted to make sure that, we were covering the issue with as much fairness as possible. Again, with as much sensitivity to the issue and understanding how wrong it is, but also just the lack of information we have and how difficult it is to comment on it. And I know I said that what they said was correct in terms of sitting him, and then I also said what I think you said is fair. And that's really just because I'm kind of open to perspective, and I hear validity to both points in a lot of ways. And I ultimately think that the discretion to make the decision on this, I'm glad that it's not up to me, and it's up to someone who has.
And I don't know tons about this situation individually or domestic violence. I've no experience dealing with it, but I will say that the arrest point should not be the point of that's at that point you're sitting down. Because the reality is that in some situations, I believe if a phone call is made to the police and they show up because of a domestic violence call, somebody is going to be arrested. But that doesn't mean that domestic violence necessarily occurred. If you have reason to believe that domestic violence occurred, then absolutely, I think you act. But just because there's a domestic violence arrest, I would need more information before I would sit the player. If that makes sense.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. And so we did talk about it. Again, a sensitive topic. And I do think the points you made were fair. I wish I had, a very confident and eloquent soliloquy to share, or a monologue to share, my thoughts. But it's very hard for me to piece together thoughts on a situation that I don't know a lot about. And I want to be as sensitive to the issue as possible. But Larry, I really appreciate your time. This was an awesome show. Somehow when we get together, we talk about something for a very long time. And I've always find it really cool because I don't think people understand that you and I, we discussed the timing for the show. And if the show is, 9 o'clock Central Time, which is the time today was, I always schedule it 5 minutes after because I'm always late. And, we get in at 9:05. So the show was scheduled at 9:05. We both get in around 9:04. We say hello to each other. We greet it. And I just send it live. And you and I just start talking. And that's where I think it's very cool because the conversation is so organic. And we're basically translating a conversation that you and I could have just about football based on our own interests and talking about it in a show format, and people seem to like it. So I really enjoy that because I think it's really authentic and it's really nice to have a conversation with real thoughts and just talk about, what we like to talk about. And it's very cool that people support us this way.
No doubt, man. I love doing this, and you're a great guy to chop it up with, and everybody who's in the chat, like and subscribe Vish's channel. He's been doing a great job, and onward and upward, man. Hopefully we'll get together later this week and do it on my channel, and then hopefully 2 weeks from now we're doing it in Arizona.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm looking so forward to that. I know that you and I will be back later in the week. Your channel has been going crazy. We got to get you to that 12K before the game. We got to get you to that 12K, and let's hope that our stream can take you there. I'm also doing a pretty cool podcast for anybody that's interested. I'm going to be joining Fran Duffy tomorrow. I don't know if people know who that is. He works for the Eagles as a producer. He's Eagles X's and O's, and he does that show where they break down a lot of Eagles film, and he works officially with the Eagles. So it's a really, really cool opportunity for me to go on with him and talk some Niners and talk about this matchup. So that podcast will come out. Stay tuned on my Twitter. You can find that. Fran is an incredibly smart guy, somebody I've learned so much from indirectly, somebody who I've looked up to and learned a lot of football from. So I'm very much looking forward to this.
When is it?
So I don't know when the podcast will come out, but we're recording it tomorrow.
Nice.
So nice. I'm really looking forward to it.
Couple guys I'm at 11,759 total subscribers. So
okay,
if you could like and subscribe to the Krueger Show, that would be awesome. As far as what I'm doing tomorrow, I'll be in Santa Clara tomorrow, interviewing players in advance of this NFC Championship game. I'm also going to try to hook up bright and early tomorrow with the great Howard Eskin from WIP fame, and we're trying to chase down a conversation with Steve Young that we'd love to have this week on the channel. So
Larry Krueger.
Hopefully we can get those done later this week.
All right, Larry, before we go, I wanted to ask you this question earlier. Does Purdy know how much you like Purdy?
Yes, he knows. I told him, I said, hey, man, when you go big time, don't forget us little people who believed when you were a nobody. And he laughs. He laughs every time.
Aw. Man. There we go. Yeah. So Purdy does know?
He knows, yeah, and his family knows, and it's not that I have anything special about me. It's just that I've been trained to watch football.
It is. Come on, Larry. Give yourself some credit.
Well, no,
Pat
no,
yourself
I've been
on the
trained to
back.
watch football, and I don't take any preconceived notions. When I go out on the field, I look at everybody like they're the same player, and I'm looking for the players to show me who the best players are by the way they play, the way they move, and I know what it's supposed to look like. I know what all these drills are supposed to look like. I know what they look like when they're done poorly. I know what they look like when they're done by Hall of Famers and guys, who are superstars. So I know what these drills are supposed to look like. And then I'm watching these drills and I just allow myself, if player A looks better than player B, then in my mind, player A is better than player B. And I don't care what round they were drafted or what the team paid to get them or who says they're good and who's got them ranked. I let my eyes tell me the story. And then if you let your eyes tell you the story, you always know the story. So that's it. That's all
Not
I got.
everybody has your eyes, Larry.
That's true.
You
But
got some
at the same
20/20
time, it's
vision
just
there.
experience. But just all I would say to anybody is be open-minded, man. Be open-minded. When you go to watch training camp next summer and you're watching guys, don't tell yourself that guy's great and that guy's okay and that guy's mediocre and that guy sucks. Watch it and see who looks the best. Because guess what? The guys who look the best are the best.
And it's okay if you're wrong too. And that's the best part of it.
Time.
Being wrong about this is the best part of it. And I'm wrong so much that I've learned to be okay with it. And once you're okay with it, the nice part about being wrong is that you just kind of get to improve your process. And improving your process and thinking about this stuff, thinking about why you're wrong is way more fun than being right or being wrong. But G Code Travel Vlogs point of view gives us one more donation for the road. Appreciate you. And he says, Brocky Balboa Purdy, quest for 6. Let's go, Larry. Larry, one last thing I wanted to ask you before you go.
Yeah.
You're going to be in the locker room this week doing what you do, talking to the players, chopping it up. Who is the player Larry Krueger wants to talk to the most?
Who do I want to talk to the most? Well, I mean, there's guys like I'd love to talk to Ray this week to hear his reaction to him fumbling, what it did to him, and how he turned it around on the very next play with a 53-yard return. I'd love to hear somebody who's real, like Ray, address failing in their moment and then rebounding off that failure in their moment to have success in their next moment. And I think that could be really, really interesting. And I want to talk to him. Who else would I like to talk to? I'd like to talk to Kyle Juszczyk and get his thoughts on this matchup. He seems really, really interesting. Who else would I like to talk to?
You definitely
Dre Greenlaw's always. Dre Greenlaw's great.
Linemen, one of the interior offensive linemen, how they feel about those big fellas.
Yeah, maybe it might be Jake Brendel time.
Okay.
I really have. I've talked to Azeez Al-Shaair the last couple games.
Has Brendel been on the Krug show before?
Who has? Who?
Brendel.
Yeah, Brendel's been on.
Okay. He's done.
I'm definitely gonna. I'll tell you the guy who I'm gonna go right to.
Okay.
I'm gonna go right to Jimmy Ward.
Ooh, okay.
I'm going right to Jimmy Ward.
He likes to share. He's interesting. He's
because
honest.
Jimmy Ward made the biggest play of the game.
Right.
And I got to ask him about that tackle, and I got to ask him about players getting hurt, how that makes him feel. You're not trying to hurt anybody, but it helped the 49ers' chances that he took Pollard out. So I want to hear his reaction. He's real. He's candid. He's smart. He's respected. So, yeah. And then Hufanga. I think I may talk to Hufanga. Those are the guys I'm looking for this week.
So you're only talking to about 10 guys, huh? Only 10.
I mean, I'll talk to anybody who's there. I want to talk to Wishnowsky.
Okay.
What
about Gold?
I talked to Robbie Gold a couple weeks ago, but
you got to ask him how his body's feeling after he took a charge from Kavontae Turpin.
Yeah, there's a number of guys. Kerry Hyder is a tremendous interview, and he's really verbal. And I'd love to talk to him about what he sees I Kerry Hyder and Daniel Brunskill to me are like great spokesmen for their position. And I'd love to hear what the veterans in the room, guys like Hyder, T.Y. McGill, think of Kelsey and, Dickerson and that line. And then I'd love to hear the Niner, offensive line talk a little bit about Hargrave and Fletcher Cox.
It's a lot of good stuff. You got to talk to a lot of people.
There'll be a lot of good stuff. Yeah.
Larry, people are talking about the over-under of how much longer this show can go. We have a reputation, but I say we're going to trick the people today, and we're going to end it right here. As always, I really appreciate your time. Make sure you subscribe to the Krug Show. Make sure you like and subscribe here. Comment down below, what you like from the Dallas game and what you're looking to see from the Niners versus the Eagles. The support is always great. We could never do this without the support you provide us, and we really appreciate it. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.